Harrisonville, a vibrant city with a diverse community, had seen its share of racial tension and inequality. However, amidst this backdrop, stories of connection and solidarity shone brightly. Doris Williams, a 74-year-old woman, gazed out of her window with a sigh of concern. The paint on her house, once bright, had faded and needed urgent attention. She knew it was time to do something about it, but the task seemed a bit daunting for someone in her condition. As the city began to stir for the day, Doris pondered the best way to get help. Her neighborhood, while not among the poorest, didn't have an abundance of maintenance workers. Moreover, times were tough for everyone, and hiring a painting company was not in her plans. So, she decided the best solution would be to find someone willing to help at a lower cost. That's when Doris heard about a young man named Jamal Robinson. Jamal was known in the community for his willingness to help, even in difficult circumstances. He lived in a more modest neighborhood and frequently helped his neighbors with small tasks. Doris thought that if he agreed, he could be the perfect solution. Jamal Robinson, 13 years old, was heading out of his house when he received the call. He was preparing for the day, hoping to find some work to help his family. "Hello?" Jamal answered, the phone still warm against his ear. "Hi, Jamal. This is Mrs. Doris Williams. I heard that you're willing to help with small tasks." Doris's voice was gentle, but carried a hint of hesitation. "Yes, Mrs. Williams. I can help with whatever you need," Jamal replied, his tone respectful and enthusiastic. "That's great to hear. I really need someone to help paint my house. It's a bit worn down, and I can't manage it on my own anymore. Could you come over today so we can discuss it?" "Sure, I can come. What time would you like me to arrive?" Jamal asked, holding the phone firmly. "How about 10 in the morning? That way, we can start early and see what needs to be done." "Perfect. I'll be there at 10. Jamal ended the call, excited to get started. When Jamal arrived at Doris's house, he was greeted by an elderly woman who watched him closely. Doris was of average height, with gray hair and an expression that mixed worry with a welcoming smile. "Hello, Jamal," she said, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you in person. I'm Doris Williams." "Hi, Mrs. Williams." Jamal shook her hand, a bit nervous. "I'm here to help with the painting, as we discussed." "Yes, yes," Doris responded, leading him to the backyard. "Let's take a look at the area and see what needs to be done." As they walked around the house, Doris explained to Jamal the details of the work. The paint was peeling in several spots, and the wood was starting to deteriorate. "It looks like it will be quite a job, but I'm sure we can do a good job," Doris said, trying to sound optimistic. "No problem, Mrs. Williams." Jamal smiled, already preparing to start. "We'll get it done." As Jamal began to set up the paints and brushes, Doris leaned against the wall and watched him with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Jamal, I never thought that asking for help from someone so young would turn out to be the best option. But here we are," Doris said, breaking the silence. "Sometimes, the best solutions come from people we least expect, don't they?" Jamal replied with an encouraging smile. Doris chuckled softly. "That's true. I'm grateful you're here." As the hours passed and the work progressed, Doris and Jamal began to talk more. Jamal spoke about his school, his dreams, and the neighborhood where he lived. Doris, in turn, shared memories of her youth and stories about the city. As the painting started to take shape, Doris couldn't help but feel thankful. Jamal was not just a helper, but someone who brought new energy and perspective into her life. They were starting to form a connection, and what began as a simple request for help was turning into something deeper and more meaningful. However, by the end of the day, what Doris didn't know was that Jamal's act of goodwill would set off a series of events that would shake the Harrisonville community and test the limits of prejudice and understanding. Doris's house was in a state of transition. The smell of fresh paint and the sound of Jamal's brushstrokes filled the air with a new energy. As the work progressed, Doris and Jamal continued to get to know each other better. It was a sunny and warm morning in Harrisonville. Jamal was sitting in the front yard, preparing the materials for painting, while Doris passed by with a tray of lemonade. She watched him with a mix of curiosity and gratitude. "I brought you some lemonade, Jamal," Doris offered, extending the glass. "Thanks, Mrs. Williams." Jamal took the glass and took a sip. "This is really good. I'm glad you like it, Doris smiled, sitting down beside Jamal. Have you done this kind of work before? Yes, I've helped some neighbors with painting and gardening, Jamal replied, pulling out a chair for her. But never on a house as big as yours. Well, I'm really grateful to have you here. I honestly didn't know how I'd manage this on my own. Doris looked at the house, visibly pleased with the progress. It's a big job, but it looks like you're doing great. I'm trying my best, Jamal said modestly. And I'm glad to be helping. Can I ask you something? Doris leaned in a little. What do you like to do outside of work? Any passions or hobbies? Jamal hesitated for a moment, as if thinking about how to respond. I really enjoy drawing. Actually, I dream of becoming an artist one day. He smiled shyly. I like to capture what I see and imagine on paper. How wonderful, Doris exclaimed, admiringly. I used to love painting when I was younger. I dedicated a lot of my free time to it. Maybe we have something in common. Jamal smiled, excited about the connection. Really? What did you used to paint? A little bit of everything. Landscapes, portraits. I used to paint to relax, Doris replied, a nostalgic gleam in her eyes. Maybe I still have some of my paintings stored around here. As they talked, Jamal began to feel more at ease. He spoke about school, his friends, and his family. Doris listened attentively, charmed by the young man's sincerity. The conversation took a more personal turn when Doris asked about Jamal's life. And how's your family? Doris asked, a bit concerned. They're doing okay, Jamal responded with a sigh. My mom is working really hard to take care of us, and I try to help out as much as I can. Sometimes it's tough, but we do the best we can. That must be a big effort for her. Doris commented, I know a bit about what it's like to struggle. In my time, I had to fight hard to get what I wanted. Jamal nodded, understanding the sentiment. I think we all have our struggles, don't we? Yes, that's true. Doris agreed. And sometimes, those struggles teach us to appreciate the small things and be grateful for what we have. The day passed quickly, and the painting of the house was nearing halfway. Doris and Jamal were tired, but pleased with the progress. I can't thank you enough for all your help, Jamal, Doris said as they prepared to finish for the day. You're a very special young man. You don't have to thank me. Jamal responded with a smile. I'm just doing what I can. And I'm learning a lot from you too. Doris smiled, feeling a genuine connection with the young man. I'm learning a lot from you as well. It's nice to see such energy and hope in someone so young. As the sun began to set, Doris and Jamal wrapped up their work for the day. The house was starting to look fresh again, and the friendship between them was growing stronger. Both felt that what had started as a simple request for help was evolving into something much more meaningful. However, Doris didn't realize that Jamal's presence in her neighborhood would not be accepted by everyone. As the work continued, the town would start questioning who this young man helping the elderly lady really was, and their story would begin to take on a new dimension, filled with challenges and revelations. The morning light filtered through the trees surrounding Doris Williams's house, casting dancing shadows over the fresh layer of paint beginning to cover the facade. The constant sound of brushes and rollers was a testament to the progress being made. Jamal Robinson had arrived early, ready to continue the work they had started. While Doris prepared a tray with coffee and some cookies for both of them, Jamal was in one of the corners of the house, carefully applying the paint. The atmosphere was peaceful, marked only by the soft sounds of the ongoing work. Good morning, Jamal, Doris said, coming out to the garden with the tray. I brought coffee and cookies to start the day off right. Good morning, Mrs. Williams, Jamal replied, smiling at the offer. That sounds great. I was starting to miss a good cup of coffee. Don't worry, I've got you covered, Doris said, setting the tray on a small table nearby. How do you find the work so far? It's going well, Jamal answered, wiping paint from his hands. The work is tiring, but it's satisfying to see the progress. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Doris commented, watching the transformation beginning to take place on the house. Sometimes, it's hard to see immediate results when we're so involved in the task. That's true, Jamal agreed, grabbing a cookie. But seeing the difference at the end is rewarding. Their conversation flowed naturally as they enjoyed their coffee and cookies. Doris was particularly interested in learning more about Jamal's life. and he was equally intrigued by the stories she had to share. "So, Jamal, how's school?" Doris asked, interested. "Are you doing well in your classes?" "Yes, I'm doing well," Jamal replied, a bit hesitant. "I enjoy art classes, of course, and I'm also trying to excel in science subjects because I want to study something related to technology when I grow up." "That's interesting," Doris exclaimed. "I've always admired people who have a passion for learning and growing. It's great to see a young person with so many goals." "Thanks, Mrs. Williams." Jamal smiled, visibly excited. "And what did you do when you were younger?" Doris smiled at the memory. "Well, besides painting, I studied literature and was part of a local theater group. I loved expressing myself through art and performance." "Wow, that sounds amazing," Jamal said, impressed. "I never had the chance to be involved in something like that. Sometimes, life gives us opportunities that we don't always know how to seize, but it's important to stay open to new experiences." Doris reflected, looking at the work that still remained. "And you're on the right path to discovering many new things." As the day went on, Jamal and Doris continued their work. The painting was nearly complete, and the house was starting to look new again. Doris was pleased with the refreshed appearance of the house and, more importantly, with the new friendship she had formed with Jamal. However, Jamal's presence, a young black man helping an elderly white woman in a predominantly upper-middle-class neighborhood, was beginning to draw curious glances from some neighbors. Tension in the town was starting to build, and some residents were beginning to question the situation. At lunchtime, one of the neighbors, Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged man who lived next door, approached with a concerned expression. "Good morning, Doris." Mr. Thompson greeted cautiously. "I see you're doing quite a big renovation here. I hope everything's okay." "Oh, hello, Mr. Thompson." "Yes, everything's great," Doris replied, trying to keep the conversation light. "Jamal here is doing an excellent job." "I understand." Mr. Thompson looked at Jamal with an expression that mixed curiosity and apprehension. "I was just a bit surprised to see a young man from outside working here." Doris noticed the subtlety in Thompson's voice and decided to respond firmly. "Jamal is helping because he's a good person and doing an excellent job. And honestly, his help is very much appreciated. Of course, I just wanted to make sure everything was in order," Mr. Thompson said, trying to sound neutral, but with an expression that betrayed a hint of suspicion. "Well, I hope everything continues to go smoothly." After Mr. Thompson walked away, Doris turned to Jamal with a worried expression. "I'm sorry about what happened, Jamal. I didn't mean for you to feel uncomfortable." "Don't worry about it, Mrs. Williams," Jamal replied, trying to hide his unease. "I understand that some people might not be used to this." Doris sighed, feeling a wave of frustration. "Unfortunately, the reality is that there's still a lot of prejudice out there. But I want you to know that I really value what you're doing, and your presence here is very important." Jamal smiled, relieved by Doris's support. "Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I just want to finish the work and make a difference, even if it's a small one." As the day neared its end and the work was winding down, Doris and Jamal were relieved to see the house coming back to life. However, the subtle discomfort caused by Jamal's presence still lingered, like a shadow spreading through the community. The situation was about to escalate, and Jamal's simple act of help was about to trigger a series of events that would challenge understanding and acceptance in the town of Harrisonville. The afternoon was dragging on in Harrisonville, and the heat was starting to subside. Doris Williams's house was nearly finished, and the fresh paint was gleaming in the setting sun. Jamal Robinson was working diligently, while Doris watched with a satisfied smile. The atmosphere was calm, but tension was beginning to build in the neighborhood. As Jamal worked on the roof, applying the final coat of paint, Doris was in front of the house, admiring the work. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling up on the street interrupted the silence. Doris turned and saw a police car approaching slowly. With a mix of concern and perplexity, Doris approached the car as it stopped. The officer, a man of average build with a stern look, got out of the vehicle. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Williams," the officer greeted, with a neutral expression. "We received a call about suspicious activity here." "Suspicious activity?" Doris asked, perplexed. "There's nothing suspicious here. Jamal is just helping paint my house." "I see," the officer said, looking at Jamal on the roof. Can we take a look to make sure everything is in order? Certainly, Doris replied, trying to stay calm. Please feel free to check. The officer approached Jamal, who was now coming down from the roof, with a confused and slightly nervous look. Hello, young man, the officer said, addressing Jamal in a formal tone. Can you tell me what you're doing here? Jamal hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. I'm helping Mrs. Williams paint her house. We started this work a few days ago. And how do you know Mrs. Williams? The officer continued, keeping his gaze fixed on Jamal. Seeing that Jamal was feeling uncomfortable, Doris intervened. He's been helping with the painting and has been doing an excellent job. I know him from the community. There's nothing suspicious going on here. I understand, the officer said, appearing to mentally note the information. We're just doing a routine check. We'll let you continue, but if anything seems off, you know where to find us. With that, the officer returned to his car and drove away. Jamal, still a bit shaken, approached Doris. Mrs. Williams, what just happened? He asked, trying to understand the reason for the police visit. I'm not exactly sure, Doris replied, frustrated. It seems someone made an anonymous report and the police came to check it out. I'm sorry about this, Jamal. I should have anticipated that this might happen. Jamal forced a smile, trying to keep his composure. Don't worry, Mrs. Williams. I understand that people can be cautious. This shouldn't be happening, Doris said, with a worried expression. Your presence here should be a normal thing, not a cause for suspicion. I just want to finish the work and help, Jamal replied, with a tone of resignation. I don't want to cause any trouble for anyone. As the sun began to set, Doris and Jamal went back to work, but the incident left an uneasy feeling in the air. The brief police visit had left a visible mark on the community. News of the incident quickly spread, and the atmosphere in Harrisonville began to change. That night, Doris sat in her living room, reflecting on what had happened. She couldn't understand why a simple act of helping someone had become a source of tension. The idea that an act of kindness could be viewed with suspicion troubled her deeply. Jamal, meanwhile, was at home, discussing the day's events with his mother. Mom, today Mrs. Williams and I had a run-in with the police, Jamal said, with a worried tone. They came because someone reported that I was helping her. His mother, a woman with a serious and weary expression, sighed. Unfortunately, that's not surprising. Sometimes people can be very prejudiced. But what's important is that you're doing the right thing and helping those in need. I just want to finish the work and move on, Jamal replied, a bit disheartened. I hope this doesn't cause more problems. His mother hugged him, trying to comfort him. You're doing a wonderful job, Jamal. Keep up your positive attitude and don't let this discourage you. The truth always comes out, and the people who really matter will see how much you're contributing. As Harrisonville prepared for another day, the incident cast a shadow over the town. Jamal's act of kindness was starting to be seen differently by some, and the community was beginning to question what it really meant to help someone. The painting work on Doris's house was becoming a reflection of the deeper tensions that were starting to emerge in the town. The morning after the police incident, the mood in Harrisonville was tense. Conversations in cafes, stores, and neighborhood meetings centered around the event, and rumors began to spread rapidly. The situation was far from resolved, and Jamal's presence at Doris Williams's house was starting to raise more suspicion and distrust. Doris was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, when her friend Ellen Parker, a 65-year-old woman well known in the community, called to chat. Ellen had a worried voice and a doubtful expression when she arrived at Doris's house. Doris, I heard about what happened with Jamal and the police, Ellen said, entering the kitchen. This is really concerning. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine, Ellen, Doris replied, trying to sound calm. Jamal and I are continuing with the work, but the incident has really shaken us. I can imagine, Ellen said, looking around the house. I just don't understand why someone would make a report like that. He's just helping you. I don't understand either, Doris sighed, looking out the window at Jamal, who was finishing up the final details of the painting. But it seems that rumors have spread, and some people are starting to make speculations. At Jamal's school, the atmosphere was also charged. His classmates, having heard about the incident, were starting to ask questions and make comments. Hey, Jamal, I heard you had a run-in with the police. Ryan, a classmate, said as he approached Jamal during recess. What exactly happened? Jamal hesitated for a moment before responding. I was just helping Mrs. Williams with painting her house, and someone made a report. The police came to check it out, but it was nothing serious. Really? Ryan asked, with a tone of curiosity. I heard it was something more serious, like a problem with what you were doing there. No, it wasn't anything like that, Jamal replied, a bit irritated by the distortion of the facts. It was just a misunderstanding. In the classroom, the conversation about the incident continued to spread, and the atmosphere was filled with speculation. Jamal tried to focus on his lessons, but the discussions around him were distracting. The situation was starting to affect his daily life. That afternoon, Doris decided to visit the neighborhood committee to discuss the situation. She knew she needed to do something to address the growing tension. Arriving at the community center, she found several residents gathered, discussing the issue in animated tones. Doris, exclaimed the committee president, Mr. Jenkins, a 58-year-old man known for his leadership in the community. It's great to see you. What brings you here today? Hello, Mr. Jenkins. Doris replied with a serious expression. I came to talk about the situation with Jamal and the painting of my house. It seems there are a lot of rumors and misunderstandings circulating, and it's affecting not just me but also the young man. Yes, I've heard about it, Mr. Jenkins said, with a concerned tone. There are a lot of conversations going on, and not all of them are accurate. Exactly, Doris agreed. I just want everyone to know that Jamal is here to help, and there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. He's a good kid and deserves respect, just like anyone else. I understand your concern, Mr. Jenkins said, looking around the room. I'll try to address the issue at our next meeting and make sure everyone gets the truth. Doris felt a sense of relief hearing that, but she knew the situation wasn't completely resolved yet. The town was divided, and conversations continued to multiply, making it hard to distinguish facts from speculation. Later, Jamal was at home, trying to relax after a tough day at school. His mother came into the room with a worried expression. How was your day today, Jamal? She asked, sitting down next to him. It was tough, Jamal replied, sighing. People are talking about what happened with the police, and many of my classmates have questions and comments. It's not easy. I understand, his mother said, hugging him. Just remember that you're doing the right thing. The truth will eventually come out, and the people who really care about you will see that. Jamal nodded, although he was still feeling down. The situation was far from simple, and the spreading rumor was starting to affect his life in unexpected ways. As the town continued to debate and speculate, Jamal's and Doris's work was becoming a reflection of the larger issues they were facing, and the need for understanding and truth was becoming more urgent. Harrisonville was now immersed in a climate of growing tension. The incident with the police and the spreading rumors had divided the community, and the atmosphere was charged with distrust and speculation. Doris Williams's house, which had been a place of transformation and renewal, was now at the center of a larger controversy. It was a cloudy morning when Doris decided she needed to clear things up. She was determined to resolve the situation once and for all. Jamal, who had been the target of many curious glances and disrespectful comments, was eager to see if the situation would improve. Doris and Jamal were in the kitchen, preparing for a small meeting with some residents interested in hearing the truth. Doris looked at Jamal with an encouraging expression. I think we're ready to start, Doris said, adjusting the plates and drinks on the table. I hope this helps clear things up. I hope so too, Jamal replied, nervous but determined. I just want people to know that I'm here to help, not to cause problems. And that's exactly what we want to show, Doris confirmed, placing the last drink on the table. Let's welcome the first guests and see how the meeting goes. At 10 a.m., the first residents began to arrive. Among them were Ellen Parker, Mr. Jenkins, and a few other neighbors who had shown interest in understanding the situation better. Doris and Jamal welcomed them at the entrance of the house. Good morning, everyone, Doris greeted, trying to maintain a warm tone. Thank you all for coming. Let's try to clear up what really happened. Ellen, always a longtime friend of Doris, looked at Jamal with sympathy. Hello, Jamal. How are you feeling? A bit nervous, but I'm ready to talk, Jamal replied, trying to hide his apprehension. Mr. Jenkins, the committee president, took charge of the meeting. All right, Let's get started. Doris, can you tell us what happened from your perspective? Doris gestured for everyone to sit down. Of course. As many of you know, I asked Jamal to help paint my house. He's a young man from the community who is just lending a hand. However, there was an incident with the police due to an anonymous report. This led to a lot of rumors and speculations that don't reflect the reality. And how did you find out about the report? Asked a neighbor, Laura Thompson, with a curious tone. The police informed us when they arrived. Doris explained. There was no real problem, just a routine check. However, the rumors started spreading quickly and caused discomfort for Jamal. I just want to make it clear that I didn't do anything wrong, Jamal said, with a firm voice. I was just helping Mrs. Williams like anyone else might do. I don't understand why this became a problem. There was a murmur of agreement among the attendees. Mr. Jenkins then spoke again. We appreciate Doris and Jamal for being open with us. I understand that the situation has been difficult and that the rumors may have caused a negative impression. A neighbor, Mrs. Harris, who had been quiet until then, raised her hand. I think we might have been too quick to judge without understanding the whole situation. I apologize if this caused any discomfort. Sometimes, fear of the unknown can lead to misunderstandings. Jamal looked at Mrs. Harris with a surprised but relieved expression. I appreciate that. I just want everyone to know that I'm here to help and do my best. The meeting continued, with Doris and Jamal answering questions and discussing the situation openly. Most of the attendees seemed to better understand the context and recognize that the rumors had been harmful. Later that day, Doris and Jamal were alone in the house, cleaning up and organizing after the meeting. Doris was relieved to have had the opportunity to clear things up. I think the meeting helped put some things into perspective, Doris said, looking at Jamal. At least now, more people understand what really happened. Yeah, it seems like most people are starting to get it, Jamal replied, with a slight smile. I just hope things go back to normal soon. Doris nodded. I hope so too. And Jamal, I want you to know that I really appreciate everything you've done. You've shown a lot of courage and integrity. Jamal smiled, a bit more relaxed. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I was just trying to help and do the right thing. The tension in Harrisonville was starting to ease, although the impact of the incident was still felt. The meeting helped clarify the situation, and most of the residents were beginning to see things in a more balanced light. However, the path to acceptance and understanding was still long. The experience had left a mark on Doris, Jamal, and the community as a whole, and the lesson of not rushing to judgment and seeking the truth would continue to resonate in Harrisonville. The atmosphere in Harrisonville was beginning to stabilize after the clarifying meeting, but the underlying tension was still palpable. Doris Williams's house had received a fresh coat of paint and looked better than ever, but the recent episode had left visible and invisible marks on the community. It was a quiet evening when Doris was preparing for a visit from her niece, Karen, who was coming from a neighboring town for the weekend. Doris was looking forward to the visit, which represented a welcome break from the local tensions. However, what Doris didn't know was that the situation was about to take an unexpected turn. While Doris was in the kitchen, organizing dinner, the phone rang. She answered, expecting a normal call from Karen. Hello, Karen, Doris said with enthusiasm. I can't wait to see you tonight. Hello, Aunt Doris. Karen's voice was tense and worried. There's something I need to tell you. I received a strange phone call this afternoon. Someone called me saying there was a plan to vandalize your house. Doris froze for a moment, the phone nearly slipping from her hands. What? What do you mean? Why would someone do that? I'm not sure of the details, Karen explained. But the person sounded very serious and mentioned something about people being unhappy with your decision to have Jamal paint the house. I thought I should warn you. Doris's heart raced. I'm going to call the police right away. We can't ignore this. The next day, Doris and Jamal were at the house, discussing some final maintenance tasks when the police arrived again. The officer who had visited before, now accompanied by a colleague, approached with a serious expression. Good morning, Mrs. Williams. The officer greeted. We received a report about a possible vandalism threat to your house. We're here to check on the situation. Good morning, officer, Doris replied, with a mix of concern and relief. I received a call last night about this, and I'm quite worried. We understand, the officer said, looking around the house. We'll patrol the area and make sure everything is secure. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Doris responded, trying to stay calm. As the officers conducted their patrol, Jamal approached Doris with a worried expression. Mrs. Williams, are you okay? He asked, noticing her discomfort. Yes, I'm okay, but of course, I'm worried about what might happen. Doris replied, trying to stay strong. The last thing I want is for you to feel threatened. Don't worry about it, Jamal said, trying to reassure her. I just want everyone to stay safe and for us to get through this. That night, Doris and Jamal were sitting in the living room, discussing how they could handle the situation. The atmosphere in the house was tense, and the sense of insecurity was palpable. I just don't understand why this is happening, Doris said, looking at Jamal with a tired expression. We were just trying to help, and now everything has turned into a nightmare. Sometimes, people have a hard time accepting change or understanding others' motives. Jamal reflected. The important thing is that we're doing what we believe is right. The phone rang again, interrupting their conversation. Doris answered, hoping for good news. It was Karen. Hi, Aunt Doris, it's Karen again. Karen's voice was even more worried now. I have more information. It seems there's a group of people planning to gather tonight to protest in front of your house. Doris swallowed hard, feeling a chill run down her spine. What do you mean by protest? Are they planning something specific? Yes, they want to protest against you helping Jamal and are planning to vandalize your house as a demonstration. Karen explained, her voice trembling. I suggest you take precautions and stay alert. Doris looked at Jamal, who had a worried expression. I'm going to call the police again. We can't let this happen. Later that night, while the house was quiet, Doris and Jamal were waiting for any signs of trouble. The police were making extra patrols and had set up some security barriers around the property. The feeling of vulnerability was high, but the police presence helped to ease their anxiety a bit. Jamal broke the silence. Mrs. Williams, I know this must be really hard for you, but I really appreciate what you're doing for me and for the community. I just hope this all passes soon. Doris replied, looking out the window. What worries me most is that this is affecting you and your family. We'll face this together, Jamal said, trying to lift Doris's spirits. We'll get through this and come out stronger. The night seemed endless, and the tension was at its peak. The possibility of vandalism and the sense of imminent threat hung in the air, but Doris and Jamal were determined not to let fear paralyze them. They knew the next step would be crucial in resolving the situation and ensuring that the community found a path to understanding and acceptance. As the clock struck midnight and silence reigned again, Doris and Jamal held on to the hope that, with the support of the police and the community, they could get through this tough time and restore peace to the neighborhood. The morning after the vandalism alert, Harrisonville was still buzzing with the recent upheaval. The tension in the community was palpable, and the fear of what might happen loomed over everyone. Doris and Jamal, though still shaken, were determined to face the situation with courage. It was a Saturday morning, and Doris was preparing breakfast in the kitchen while Jamal helped organize the area around the house, which was still under police watch. The doorbell rang, and Doris went to answer, expecting another show of support or perhaps an update from the police. When she opened the door, she found Ellen Parker and a group of neighborhood residents, all with expressions of concern and determination. Good morning, Doris, Ellen greeted, with a supportive smile. We came to see how you're doing and to offer our help. Good morning, Ellen, Doris responded, relieved to see familiar faces. I really appreciate it. The situation has been quite difficult. We heard about what's been happening and wanted to do something to help, Ellen explained. The community can't let a small group of people create an atmosphere of fear and division. We're here to show that we support you and Jamal. A young neighbor, Lisa, who was also with the group, stepped forward. We brought some things to help with security, and we'd like to do a general cleanup of the area. If anyone tries to cause trouble, we want them to know that the community is united. Doris smiled, touched by the gesture. That means a lot to us. You have no idea how much it helps us feel that we're not alone. As the support group began working around the house, Doris and Jamal joined them. The presence of the residents brought a sense of solidarity and hope. They started talking and working together, and the atmosphere around the house gradually shifted from fear to unity. During the work, Ellen approached Jamal, who was helping to clean up the area around the house. "Jamal, I want to thank you personally," Ellen said sincerely. "What you're doing is important, and we want you to know that the community values it. Don't let the rumors get you down." "Thank you, Ellen," Jamal replied, relieved. "I'm just doing what I think is right, but it's good to know we have people's support." Meanwhile, Lisa was helping Doris organize some of the outdoor decorations. They chatted while they worked. "Doris, I know things have been tough, but seeing the whole community come together to support you and Jamal is inspiring," Lisa said, with a smile. "It shows that despite the challenges, there's much more goodness and understanding in the community than we thought." "I agree," Doris responded, with a look of gratitude. "This show of support is exactly what we need right now. I hope it helps demonstrate that what we're doing is positive." That afternoon, the police conducted another round and spoke with Doris and the support group. The lead officer gave a brief report. "Thank you all for your cooperation and for keeping the situation under control," the officer said, with a tone of appreciation. "The visible presence of support helps ensure that the situation doesn't escalate. We'll continue to monitor the area, but it's great to see the community mobilizing like this. We appreciate all your work and support," Doris replied, relieved. "We hope this demonstration of unity helps to defuse any negative intentions." "Definitely," the officer confirmed. "The community is showing that solidarity and support can overcome any challenge." As the sun began to set, the atmosphere around Doris's house was more positive. The unexpected support from the neighbors had brought a new sense of hope and strength. The community was starting to come together, and the fear that had settled in was being replaced by a growing sense of unity. That evening, Doris and Jamal were at home, reflecting on the day's events. The relief and gratitude they felt were palpable. "I never imagined we'd get so much help and support," Doris said, with a tired smile. "This really has changed the way I see our community." "Yes, it was amazing to see everyone come together like that," Jamal replied, with a satisfied tone. "It makes me feel that, despite everything, there is much more goodness and support here than any negativity that might come our way." Doris nodded. "And that's something we can't forget. Our community can face challenges and misunderstandings, but deep down, there's a true strength and solidarity that can overcome any obstacle." As they talked, the environment in the house was calmer and more optimistic. The threat of vandalism had been contained, and the community's support had created a safe and welcoming space once again. Doris and Jamal knew there was still work to be done, but the day had been a powerful reminder that even in the toughest situations, support and unity could make a significant difference. After the act of vandalism and the wave of support that followed, the Harrisonville community was eager to find a way to come together and address the lingering tensions. Doris and Jamal, relieved by the positive response from the community, now faced the challenge of building a lasting bridge between residents and addressing the issues that had arisen. On Sunday afternoon, Doris and Jamal attended a meeting organized by the community committee. The goal was to discuss how the community could better handle similar situations in the future and promote mutual understanding. The meeting was scheduled to take place at the city's community center, a known gathering spot for local events. Doris and Jamal arrived early to help arrange the chairs and prepare the space. As residents began to arrive, the mood was mixed. There was a sense of hope and a need for confrontation. Mr. Jenkins, the committee president, was the first to address the group. With a determined look, he began the meeting. "Good afternoon, everyone," Mr. Jenkins greeted. "I appreciate everyone coming out today. This is an important moment for our community. We need to discuss what happened recently and how we can move forward in a more united and understanding way." "I completely agree," Doris said, standing up to speak. "What happened to Jamal in my house was a reflection of something deeper that needs to be addressed. We need to ensure that our community is a place of support, not division." "I'd like to hear from Jamal as well," Mr. Jenkins suggested, gesturing to Jamal. "He's been at the center of this situation, and his perspective is crucial." Jamal stood up, looking at the residents with a mix of nervousness and hope. "Hello, everyone," Jamal began. "I just want to say that the situation has been difficult, but the support I've received has been incredible. However, I feel there's a need for more dialogue and understanding among all of us. I hope we can use this as an opportunity to grow together." There was a murmur of agreement among those present. One of the neighbors, Margaret, a 55-year-old woman known for her active involvement in the community, raised her hand. "Jamal, I want to apologize if the situation caused any discomfort for you and Doris. I think many of us acted impulsively and didn't consider the consequences. It's important that we have more open and honest communication going forward." "Thank you for that, Margaret," Jamal replied, with a smile. "I believe we've all learned something valuable from this situation. The important thing is that we can use this experience to make positive changes." During the meeting, several proposals were discussed to improve communication and understanding within the community. Suggestions included creating a community dialogue group, hosting integration events, and holding workshops on diversity and inclusion. Ellen, who had been a strong supporter, made a suggestion. "I think we should organize a community event to celebrate our diversity and promote integration. We could invite everyone for a day of activities, food, and open conversations. This could help build a stronger foundation for mutual understanding." "Excellent idea, Ellen." Mr. Jenkins agreed. "We'll work on that. We need a joint effort to show that we are a united community and that we're willing to learn and grow together." Lisa, another active resident, also contributed her ideas. "What about education in schools? Maybe we should introduce programs that teach children and young people about the importance of empathy and diversity. That way, we can start cultivating a more inclusive mindset from an early age." The meeting continued for a few more hours, with residents discussing and refining ideas. The overall feeling was one of optimism and determination to create a more welcoming and collaborative environment. By the end of the meeting, Doris and Jamal were saying goodbye to the participants when Mr. Jenkins approached with a smile. "Doris, Jamal, I thank you for having the courage to face this situation and for helping to start this important conversation. The community owes you for bringing this to light." "We appreciate it, Mr. Jenkins," Doris replied, with a grateful look. "We hope we can continue to move forward together and create a better future for everyone." Jamal nodded in agreement. "Yes, I hope we can turn this into something positive and build a stronger, more united community." As Doris and Jamal left the community center, they felt a bit lighter. The meeting had been an important step toward addressing divisions and fostering deeper understanding within the community. The journey was far from over, but the meeting had provided a new beginning. The hope that the Harrisonville community could unite and learn from its experiences was renewed, and Doris and Jamal were determined to keep working to build a bridge between residents and tackle challenges together. The community event proposed during the meeting was finally coming to fruition. Harrisonville was preparing for a special day of celebration and integration. The city's central square was decorated with colorful flags, tables filled with local foods, and spaces set up for activities and talks. The goal was to create a welcoming environment where all residents could get to know each other better and learn about the importance of diversity and inclusion. Doris and Jamal were excited and eager for the event. They arrived early to help with the preparations and ensure everything was ready to welcome the visitors. Jamal was involved in setting up a booth that showcased photos and information about the local history and the renovation work he and Doris had done. "Is everything going well?" Doris asked, adjusting some of the decorations on the tables. "Yes, everything is looking great," Jamal replied, smiling. "I think it's going to be an amazing day." "I agree," Doris said, looking around with satisfaction. "It's nice to see everyone coming together like this. I hope the event helps strengthen our community bonds." As Doris and Jamal continued their preparations, Ellen, who was coordinating one of the activity tables, approached with an excited smile. "Hi, Doris, Jamal. Everything ready for the big day?" "All set," Doris replied, excited. "I'm looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds." "Me too," Ellen said, adjusting some informational posters. "I hope everyone feels welcomed and enjoys the event. It was quite an effort to organize all this, but I'm happy with how it turned out." As the event began, the central square started to fill up with residents. There was live music, cultural performances, and a variety of activities for both kids and adults. The booths were busy, and the atmosphere was one of enthusiasm and camaraderie. Karen, Doris's niece, arrived with a group of friends and family. She looked for Doris among the crowd. "Aunt Doris, this is amazing," Karen exclaimed. looking around with admiration. You all did a wonderful job. I'm glad you like it, Doris replied, hugging Karen. Thank you for all your support. It means a lot to us. At Jamal's booth, a young woman named Mia, who had participated in the painting activities with him, approached with a group of friends. Jamal, I never thought I'd see something like this. Mia commented, impressed. It's incredible to see how the community is coming together. I'm surprised too, Jamal said, smiling. It's great to see everyone willing to work together and support each other. As the afternoon progressed, Doris took the stage to give a brief speech. She was nervous, but also excited about the opportunity to speak to the community. Good afternoon, everyone, Doris began, looking at the audience with a smile. I want to thank each of you for coming and participating in this event. It was a collective effort to get here, and it's wonderful to see our community united. The crowd applauded, and Doris continued. What happened recently was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity for us to come together and learn from each other. I hope this event is just the beginning of a more inclusive and supportive future for all of us. After her speech, Jamal joined Doris on stage. He addressed the audience with a tone of gratitude and hope. I just want to add that it's a great privilege to be part of a community that's willing to come together and overcome challenges, Jamal said, looking at the residents with a sincere expression. Thank you all for being here and for showing that understanding and support are stronger than any obstacle. The crowd applauded once again, and the atmosphere in the square was filled with a sense of accomplishment and optimism. Throughout the rest of the event, Doris, Jamal, and the other residents continued to interact, participating in activities and discussing the future of the community. There was a growing sense that, despite the difficulties faced, Harrisonville had taken an important step toward understanding and acceptance. As the sun began to set and the event came to an end, Doris and Jamal were tired but happy. They looked at the square, now lit with festive lights, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It was an incredible day, Doris said, looking at Jamal with a smile. I think we achieved something really positive here. I agree, Jamal replied, looking around with satisfaction. And the best part is that it shows our community can overcome anything when we come together. As the last visitors began to disperse and the square started to empty, Doris and Jamal were filled with hope for the future. They knew the journey was far from over, but the event had been an important step toward building a more united and inclusive community. After the successful community event, the atmosphere in Harrisonville felt noticeably lighter. The collaboration and unity shown during the celebration had brought a new spirit to the town. However, fully recovering from the tension that had previously set in still required ongoing work. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Doris and Jamal met for coffee at Doris's house. Both were reflecting on the event and the impact it had on their lives and the community. Do you have any sense of how the community is feeling now? Doris asked, stirring the coffee she had just served. I think most people are feeling more positive and open, Jamal replied, watching the soft light coming through the window. But of course, there are still people who need more time to process everything. I understand, Doris said with a sigh. Change doesn't happen overnight, but I feel like we're heading in the right direction. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Doris went to the door and found Mrs. Jenkins, one of the most active members of the community, holding an envelope. Good morning, Doris, Mrs. Jenkins greeted with a friendly smile. I brought something for you and Jamal. Good morning, Mrs. Jenkins, Doris replied, accepting the envelope. What is it? It's a token of appreciation from the community, Mrs. Jenkins explained. We decided to create a mural to express our gratitude and recognition for the positive impact you and Jamal have made. We wanted to deliver it personally. Doris and Jamal opened the envelope to find a card, a voucher for a dinner at a local restaurant, and an invitation to the mural unveiling. This is wonderful, Doris said, touched. We didn't expect this, but it's such a kind gesture. The community really appreciated everything you've done, Mrs. Jenkins continued. The mural will be a lasting reminder of the work we did together to overcome the challenges. On the night of the mural unveiling, Doris and Jamal arrived at the community center, where the mural was on display. The venue was decorated with soft lights, and there was a celebratory atmosphere in the air. The mural was stunning, covering an entire wall with a vibrant depiction of the united community. There were images of familiar faces, symbols of diversity, and words of hope and unity. When Mrs. Jenkins took the stage to give a speech, the audience applauded enthusiastically. "Good evening, everyone," Mrs. Jenkins began, with a solemn tone. "Tonight, we are here to celebrate not just the mural, but also the journey we have all faced and overcome together. The mural is a symbol of the strength of our community and the positive impact that Doris and Jamal have brought into our lives." Doris and Jamal were in the audience, visibly moved. When Mrs. Jenkins finished, she invited Doris and Jamal to the stage. "Doris, Jamal, please come up here," she said, with a warm smile. Doris and Jamal went up to the stage, and the audience applauded enthusiastically. The mural was fully revealed, and the vibrant details were met with admiration and joy. "I can't express how much this means to us," Jamal said, his voice choked with emotion. "Seeing the positive impact we've created together is truly inspiring." "I agree," Doris added. "This mural is a constant reminder that, despite the difficulties, we can work together to create something beautiful and lasting." During the event, residents continued to talk and share their experiences. There was a renewed sense of community and a commitment to building a more inclusive future. Karen, who was also present, found Doris and Jamal after the event. "The mural is amazing," Karen said, looking at the artwork. "You really made a difference." "It was a collective effort," Doris replied, smiling. "And the mural reflects everyone's effort in the community." "I'm so proud of you," Karen said, hugging Doris. "You've shown everyone how unity can really make a difference." That night, as Doris and Jamal headed home, both were contemplative and satisfied. The mural celebration had been a significant milestone in the community's recovery. "I feel like we really made a difference," Jamal said, looking at Doris with a thoughtful expression. "The mural is proof that change is possible when we work together." "Absolutely," Doris agreed. "And this is just the beginning. We have a bright future ahead, and I'm excited to see what more we can achieve as a community." The night was calm, and the moon shone brightly in the sky. Doris and Jamal walked with a sense of accomplishment and renewed hope, knowing that the work they had done together would help build a solid foundation for a more united and inclusive future in Harrisonville. A few weeks after the mural unveiling, the atmosphere in Harrisonville had transformed. The community event and the artistic expression of the mural had left a positive mark and a sense of hope in the town. Life was slowly returning to normal, but the change and integration promoted continued to resonate. It was a clear, sunny morning when Doris and Jamal met again to discuss the next steps to maintain the spirit of unity they had cultivated. They met at a local cafe, which was now bustling with energy and activity. "Good morning, Doris," Jamal greeted, sitting at the table with a hot coffee. "How are you feeling after the mural?" "Good morning, Jamal," Doris replied, smiling. "I'm feeling great. The mural really brought a sense of closure to everything we've been through, but I feel like there's still more work to do." "I agree," Jamal said, looking at a folder of documents in front of him. "The community is in a good place now, but we need to keep nurturing that spirit. I was thinking we could start a series of regular events to keep engagement and communication open." Doris raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of events did you have in mind? How about a monthly community fair?" Jamal suggested. "We could have information booths, local talent performances, and even workshops on various topics, like practical skills and personal development. This could help keep the sense of community active and engaged." "I love the idea," Doris exclaimed, excited. "And if we include activities for all ages, that would help involve families and people from different generations." "Excellent suggestion," Jamal agreed. "We could have activities geared towards children, like art workshops and reading sessions, as well as for adults, like lectures and discussion groups. This would make the event more inclusive." The next day, Doris and Jamal met with the community committee to discuss the new idea. Mr. Jenkins was present, as well as Ellen and other active community members. "Thank you all for coming," Doris started, with an enthusiastic tone. "Jamal and I had an idea to keep the spirit of unity we created with the mural alive. We want to propose a monthly community fair to promote ongoing engagement and communication among residents." "That sounds great," Mr. Jenkins said, smiling. "A monthly fair would be an excellent way to keep the community involved and active." How can we help make this happen? Ellen stepped forward. We can start planning the first fair for next month. I'll volunteer to coordinate the information booths and activities. We can also look for local sponsors to help with the costs. That would be wonderful, Ellen. Doris replied, grateful. And we can work together to create a schedule of events and activities to ensure there's something interesting for everyone. In the following weeks, the planning for the community fair progressed quickly. Doris and Jamal worked with the committee to organize activities, recruit volunteers, and prepare the space. Excitement for the fair grew, and the anticipation was palpable. On the day of the first community fair, the central square was once again filled with people. There were colorful booths, live music, and a variety of activities for all ages. Doris and Jamal were busy welcoming visitors and ensuring everything was running smoothly. Karen, who had volunteered, approached Doris with a big smile. "Aunt Doris, look how amazing it is," Karen exclaimed, pointing to the lively crowd. "The event is exceeding all expectations." "It's true, Karen," Doris replied, observing the vibrant atmosphere. "I'm so happy with the community's response. It really shows that we're on the right track." Jamal joined them with a look of satisfaction. "Seeing all this energy and participation is incredible, and it's all thanks to everyone's support." As Doris, Jamal, and Karen talked, Ellen approached, carrying a stack of flyers. "Doris, Jamal, the feedback we're getting is extremely positive," Ellen said, handing out the flyers. "People are loving the activities and the opportunities to interact." "That's great to hear," Jamal replied, taking some flyers. "I hope we can continue to build on this success and make the fair a regular tradition." During the event, Doris and Jamal took a moment to reflect on the impact they had made. They sat in one of the rest areas, watching the interaction among the residents. "Look at this, Doris," Jamal said, pointing to families and groups of friends having a good time. "This is what really matters. Seeing people connect and enjoy the community." "I totally agree," Doris replied, with a satisfied smile. "It's amazing to see how positively the community has responded. I think we've achieved something truly special here. And there's still much more to do." Jamal commented, "This is just the beginning. I believe we can continue to expand our initiatives and further strengthen our community." Doris nodded, with a determined look. "Yes, there's a promising future ahead. I'm excited to see where this will lead us and how we can continue to make a difference." By the end of the day, the fair had been a resounding success. The square was filled with laughter and lively conversations, and the sense of unity and collaboration was palpable. Doris and Jamal were tired but extremely happy with the outcome. As the visitors began to disperse and the booths were taken down, Doris and Jamal met again, looking at the now peaceful square. "It was an incredible day," Doris said, with a contented look. "We're building something lasting here." "No doubt about it," Jamal agreed. "And this is just the beginning. With continued community support, we can achieve even more." The night was calm, and the gentle breeze brought a feeling of accomplishment. Doris and Jamal were ready to continue their journey, knowing that the foundation for a more united and inclusive future was firmly established in Harrisonville.